Since the start of the Syrian uprising in March of 2011, it's estimated that well over 250,000 people have died in the conflict, with hundreds of thousands more wounded. Canada has committed over $969 million in humanitarian, development, and security assistance in response to the Syria crisis. More than 4.5 million Syrians have sought refuge in neighboring countries and Europe, and for its part, Canada is set to welcome 25,000 government-assisted refugees by the spring of 2016. Some of the roughly 1,300 Syrian refugees that will resettle in Calgary have already begun to arrive, and private citizens and local organizations alike are working to ensure these new Canadians are settled as quickly as possible. Tonight we explore who these refugees are, what challenges lay ahead for them, and some of the strategies in place to help them.
Hey Calgary, I'm Kevin Chorney and this is Calgary Now. I'm sure you're gathered tonight. We're going to be talking about the Syrian refugees that are settling in Calgary. And to do just that, I'm joined by Fariborz Birjandian, the CEO of the Calgary Catholic Immigration Society. Sir, thanks so much for taking the time to be here. I'm not so sure everyone's familiar with what it is the Calgary Catholic Immigration Society does. If you would, briefly, what is the role over there? What is the mandate?
Sure, I think the mandate is very clear. We are here to help newcomers to Calgary, either refugee or immigrants, to really settle and gain a life of dignity and become part of a Calgary community. That's what we are started with in about 70s when we had refugees from Vietnam start coming to Calgary. That's the history of organization. The Diocese of Calgary helped to create the organization. I think now we are actually one of the 4th largest immigrant saving agency in the country. Actually, we have about 240 staff, 1,800 volunteers, and we are in Calgary, High River, Banff, Okotoks, Brooks. So we are quite an organization which we develop a lot of capacity. Again, as you know, Calgary is becoming a very desirable destination for immigrants that are coming. Last year we had almost 18,000 people that they choose Calgary, migrate from other countries to Calgary from over 100 different countries. So that itself is a challenge for the cities, any city. So there are a number of organizations, including Calgary Catholic Immigration Society, and we refer to that as a CCIS.
Right.
And that is what we do. We have classes, we have a settlement program, we have, but one thing unique about this agency is that we actually do a lot around refugees as well. So about 20% of our organization is designed and developed expertise to help refugees. And refugees that are coming to our country through government-sponsored refugees, and also with the Roman Catholic of Diocese of Calgary, we have a partnership that we also sponsor refugees ourselves, and that's where we started with the refugees from Syria.
Not for profit. A lot of money comes from the Canadian Immigration, Government of Canada, obviously.
Exactly. It's a non-profit organization like many other NGOs, and we get funding from 3 levels of governments, associations, foundations, and also we generate some funding ourselves by providing services that people can afford to pay for it. So it's a very dynamic organization.
It sounds like,
I think
sounds like a lot of work.
It's kind of, we have actually quite international reputation as well, because some of the practices we do, which we talk about in respect to refugees or integration to labor market, is one of the identified as the best practices. So we are very happy with that.
You know, what's excellent to me about the CCIS is that the CEO, yourself, of course, was once a refugee as well.
Exactly, yes.
I think that's great. You've obviously got some real hands-on experience. If you would, can you tell me a little bit about your path from leaving Iran to becoming where you are now, the CEO of the CCIS?
Actually, interesting you asked that, because I was at the airport when we had 20 refugees from Syria arriving. That was December 8th. So I just was sitting there and looking at the door that they were coming out. Exactly in 1988, I walked through that doors myself with my children and my wife as a refugee to Calgary. So I think that was kind of reminded me of 27 years ago what happened when we came to Calgary. It was minus 35 at the time, so that was a little bit warmer. Different.
But otherwise, that was a bit of an emotional moment, perhaps?
Oh, exactly. I mean, when you become refugee, because nobody plans to become refugees. I mean, I was a naval officer. My wife was a high school teacher. We are non-Muslim from Iran. We are Baha'i by faith. So obviously, the new Islamic government had problem with that, and they wanted us to convert to Islam, which, again, a great religion. But we were Baha'is already. We had a religion. So we didn't want to convert.
Good for you, yeah.
But as a result, we actually both lost our job, our livelihood, and then even my kids could not go to school at that time. I was 6 years old, and they refused to register with school because they expected me to change my faith. So we didn't do that, so we became a refugee. Actually, we had to escape Iran to another Muslim country that they were great, Pakistan. They were amazing, very hospitable country. They embraced us, they helped us. I was there for about 13, 14 months. And then through a process, we were very lucky and very fortunate to come to Canada and Calgary. So, but it was funny because I used to be a ship officer, a ship captain, and I started coming to Calgary and started a new life, and they joined Calgary Catholic Immigration Society since, actually.
It's an excellent story.
Yeah, it is. I mean, amazing story.
Not a whole lot of water out here, but hey, embrace the mountains and the prairies, I guess, right?
Great, yeah.
Growing up in Canada, I mean, it's hard for somebody like me to really imagine what the people from Syria have gone through, their experience to date. I mean, what has that experience been like for these people? I mean, how do they make that decision to leave? Do these people even have a decision to make?
It's unfortunate we are advancing in many areas in the world, but when it comes to really the stability of countries, we can see that it is not really working well for many, many people. I mean, looking at 30 years ago when I became refugee and started understanding what refugee is and what people go through, I mean, we only had about maybe 20 million refugees at the time. In 2015, according to UNHCR, that's the United Nations High Commission on Refugees, we have actually 60 million refugees. So it is really, obviously, that's a bad signal that things are not going well in many, many countries. So including Syria and the whole region, obviously, as you know, we know that it's going through a huge turmoil, and people are really, destabilizing the governments. There's people that are taking over, and they're killing people, and it is really severe. It is very difficult for people to even imagine, for average people living in Calgary. It's very difficult. Even when I came, I remember when I was telling my story to people that they denied my, my basic right because I was born to a different faith groups. People couldn't understand it, couldn't believe it. I mean, people are now more aware of what's happening there. But a lot of these people, they just lost their life. They lost their families. I mean, we had the family just came last week. The father was killed, and the rest of the family were very fortunate not to get killed when the bomb came in. So it is very unfortunate. I mean, we see things on the TV, but they are 100 times more worse than what we see. Because this is only a snapshot and you look at it, but if you have to live there, you have your loved one there, your children, it is just very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. And when you talk to the refugees, they came, they've been on the run for past 4 years actually. This is not a new.
No, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. That's right, that's a good point. We're going to jump to a quick break and check in with our rant pack. Folks, stay with us.
Sure.
I'll just start off by saying I'm really, really disappointed to know the extent to which people are afraid of the other in this city and across the country. These Syrian refugees are people that are desperately trying to get out of a country that has been ruined. It's ruined. I mean, the beautiful cities that people lived in there don't exist anymore because of bombing. The governments there don't care about the people. It's a failed society, and they can't live there. They're not safe. They have no food. Their kids have nowhere to sleep. So the idea that these people who are so desperate are going to come to this country and cause chaos here and are terrorists is fantastical and ridiculous in the extreme. Just in Canada, the last 2 terrorist events that happened here were committed by Canadians, passport-holding, born-here Canadians who were more crazy than they were anything else. So these people need places to come, and they should come, and they will be vetted, by the way. It's a 3-step security process, just like any immigrant has to go through.
I want to touch on what Julie talked about just a little bit later. Before we do that, though, I mean, who are these Syrian refugees? Are we talking young families? Are we talking people that are educated? Are they skilled? Do most of these people speak English?
Okay, I think we all know that there are about 4 million refugees from Syria.
4.5 million,
actually, 4 or 5 million. Actually, they are out of the country. There are countries like Jordan, Turkey, and Lebanon. We know that. But there are also millions of people displaced within the border of Syria. So it is quite a severe situation. So who they are, they're just average people. They're people that they used to go to school, go to work. had a wedding, had a neighborhood, they used to play. Suddenly, the whole livelihood has been destroyed by, obviously, different group of people just start killing each other, and that's created that. Now, what we know about the people that are coming to Calgary, actually our involvement, Calgary Catholic Immigration Society, involvement with the Syrian refugee, because we work with the Diocese of Calgary, and we actively sponsor refugees from abroad. This is a 37 years project that this organization
well-oiled machine by now, I would think.
So exactly. So we brought about almost 6,000–7,000 people in the past so many years, just one organization. So we were approached by a lot of people that they had distant relative of friends in Calgary, and they were Syrian origin, and they came to us and they asked for help. Many of them went to the bishop's office, and then Bishop actually asked me to think about that. Then we had a meeting in 2013. We started actually identifying people and started sponsoring them. Okay. Till today, we sponsored over 550 people. 160 actually have already arrived in Calgary, and some of them you won't even recognize. They're just going to school, or they're going to work. The children are at school, and so this is the settlement happening. Government of Canada has brought about 100 people so far from Syria. So about 200 or 280 people have already settled in Calgary. Who they are? The people that we know, they're average people. The one that been sponsored by private group like ourselves. Yeah. They are mainly people that they are middle class. Yeah. They have education, and they basically younger generation. I mean, they got some older folk with them. The parents, they are with them. And unfortunately, actually, a gentleman that arrived just in October actually passed away yesterday. So unfortunately, he came here and he died because he was quite ill, and I think the pressure on him was too much. So he passed away. So these are the group. And then the other group that the government-sponsored refugees are coming, they are more larger families, and families that actually are identified by United Nations High Commissioner of Refugee for more protection. So they need more protection, so they are being identified, and Canada is bringing them to Canada. So they tend to be larger families. Yeah. Yeah. And some of them with a little bit of extra need for extra support. So these are the group we are bringing in. But as far as who they are as a human being, they're like me and you. I mean, I have a Syrian artist. He came here just about a year ago. He was one of the few arrival. And he's an artist. He's a great artist. He had a beautiful house. He had a beautiful life, and everything was destroyed. Now he lives in Calgary, and he tries to make sense of the new life and try to catch up with the new environment.
The reason I ask is that I think a lot of people have a misconception of exactly what Syria is. I mean, Syria is a nation of relative wealth. It's not a third world nation where people struggle with language and skills and the rest of it. And I think it's important that Calgarians realize that. Now, you mentioned that there is a group of people that do need a bit more support. What is kind of the immediate challenge for those people?
Usually going from a place that you're familiar to migrate or move from one place to another place naturally brings a lot of challenges. Sure. Language, culture, family dynamic, income, losing status. So these are something that we've been well researched and understood by people like us, because that's what we do. So this whole global movement, so it is about moving, people move. So refugees only are one aspect of that movement. Yeah. So when they come to Canada or when go to Calgary, obviously, regardless of the status, are the refugee or immigrant, they really need to, first of all, understand where they are, and be able to do the normal function in the community, to use the transportation, understand the, the education system, banking system, everything, just whatever thing that you and I may take it for granted because it is natural to you. So they have to learn that. That's the basic thing. The second thing is that actually engaging the community, building social capital. I mean, there's a concept of building social capital, because people lose everything. They come here. When I came here, obviously I started from scratch. I didn't know that many people, so I had to start again. The same thing. So you start a new life. Now, refugees going through that hardship they had, obviously there's a cooling period that they go through, just because it is just it's unbelievable how it impacts the children, the the families when you have a home and suddenly you don't have anything.
I think anybody can appreciate
so
that.
It is just it's hard to even imagine, hard to explain to that. Even I went through that myself, but I have a hard time explaining to people what that means, because it's really a personal journey and everybody goes through it differently.
Yeah, sure.
So when they come here, obviously, again, I have to tell you, Calgary has been a great city when it comes to responding to the refugees' need. Refugees, actually, I can tell you this, they have done much better in Calgary than most other cities.
Is that so?
I think it is.
What do you attribute that to?
I think there are a number of reasons. I think we have obviously a good economy. I mean, we have been enjoying a good economy in the past many years. For jobs are available. And also it's a new city. And I remember when I came here in 1988, the city was about, what, 550, 600,000. Now it's double. So there are many, many new people in this city. So being new is not something that you don't feel a stranger.
Calgary sees about 30,000 new residents every year.
Exactly. So that is one aspect of that. There are many opportunities. And also average, I mean, people are educated. They are younger population, so they are
We're a fairly young city,
more open to changes, so they are not worried about changes. And there is a history of Calgary. I think it's a small community, although we are now being seen as a large city, but still we have that really community spirit, the small community spirit. I can tell you, I mean, I cannot say enough how good the community has been when we go to them. We've been enjoying having 1,800 volunteers.
I mean, that's a big number, right?
So you look at that, and this is not something that is, we always have that. We never had a problem going to people. I mean, even with the case of sponsoring refugees, if you have noticed, Calgary is actually the third largest city that have, as far as the sponsorship goes. First is Montreal, because you have a huge Armenian community in Montreal, and then Southern Ontario, and then Calgary. Our number of private sponsorship in the country for Syrian, is the third highest.
That's commendable based on our population and compared to those two regions you just mentioned.
Exactly.
We're going to jump to another rant pack break, folks. Stay with us.
I think that this issue surrounding the Syrian refugees has gotten out of hand. I think it's the responsibility of politicians to stand up and dispel a lot of these, whether it be rumors or misinformation or myths or whatever you want to call it. I think there's so much bad information that has come out because of it, that we need these leaders to actually stand up and tell people that they're just unequivocally wrong or categorically wrong, whatever it is you want to say. I just think that there's way too much misinformation that we need to start quashing that so that we can move forward constructively.
So housing.
Yeah.
What is the plan? Where are these 1,300 new residents of Calgary going to be living?
I think what we like to happen is that they would live across the city everywhere. That is the best practice.
That'd be ideal, sure.
But unfortunately, one of the issues we had from the beginning, the only challenge we had from the beginning was actually housing, and it still is the housing. Because what happens is with the government-sponsored refugees, the living allowance that they receive upon arrival is very low. I give you an example. For a family of 4, there are $695
for 4
to find an accommodation in Calgary.
Okay.
For single persons, it's $375. So this has been a big problem that we've been facing for some time. We brought to attention the governments, both federal and provincial, but the federal issues actually, because they provide up to 1 year's support. But there are issues that they have, political issues, that they think that they cannot pay more than what the social services in each province pays for the living allowance for people on the social system. Yeah. Personally, I don't agree with that, because we are bringing these people here hoping that they actually move on and not to go to our social assistance, and this is actually the effort that we are making on that.
Well, I mean, it's not just a hope. Studies have been conducted that sort of demonstrate that refugees that come to new lands, they don't tend to stay stagnant. They tend to progress fairly quickly.
They do. Actually, especially in Canada, I think we have amazing positive stories, starting with Ukrainian, Vietnamese, Polish, and all the people that come.
Sure.
I mean, it's an amazing story. Yeah. But that has been, unfortunately, something that has not been addressed. In the beginning of this process, I was asked, because I sit on a number of committees nationally and locally, about the challenge we had, and I identified housing. again, as I said, it's not only a short-term thing. We have to start thinking about the long-term, because we have about 2,000-3,000 people coming, or 2,000 coming to Calgary, let's say, in the next 12, 18 months. We don't want them all end up in a one neighborhood. I think this is a bad practice. I think what happens in some of the cities in Europe, even some city in some areas in Toronto, personally, I'm really pushing that to avoid that. So people have to be scattered across the city. Now, unfortunately, that is an issue. However, I think for this particular project, we have some people, some landlords, they came up. I mean, Main Street and Boardwalk, they are already prepared to give some concession.
Credit where it's due, that's great.
Yeah, that's what they are trying to do, and I think we are trying to make best out of it. But I think I really have been telling that to our politicians and our city planners, that we should avoid having large number of any ethnic group, especially refugees, to concentrate in one neighborhood, because it's not healthy, because they don't come here to go with that specific low-income neighborhood. They come to live in Calgary, and I think we have to come with some clear policies to make sure we don't have those ghettoization that some cities are having now, and they are paying a big price for it.
I would definitely tend to agree. During the federal election, there was a lot of talk about refugees being described as a security threat. What is your position regarding that statement?
Again, you have to recognize I've been a person that I have traveled to many, many countries. I've survived a number of revolutions, war in Iran, Iraq. So my perspective might be a little bit different. But I always say that the whole conversation about security and what's happening in the Middle East in respect to countries like Canada is a serious discussion. And I'm not just brushing it away. It is a serious discussion. I think we should have it. Now, bringing that discussion in the context of refugee resettlement is a little bit, I think, is misleading, basically, because when you have about 10 million, I don't know, maybe 20 million people come to Canada as a tourist every year, and you have a process called refugee selection process that actually you go in person and connect with the federal government agent. You get fingerprinted, you go through your biometric recording and all other issues, and there are 3 or 4 levels of scrutiny and security check. So it is an issue that we need to know that at least if we have a concern, we should have concern on other form of migration to Canada or visitors to Canada, not this population. And I understand, again, we know that, but again, the fear of people is serious. I don't think that we should take it seriously. We should have a discussion on that.
People should keep in mind, though, as well, over the past handful of years, we've seen 23,000 Iraqis resettle in Canada, and it seems as though they've been behaving themselves pretty well.
Yeah, especially,
I'm going to jump to another quick break, though. We've got to check in with the rant pack again, folks. Stay with us.
I believe the Syrian refugee crisis is pretty serious. We are a country founded by refugees and immigrants, so us to turn them away is ridiculous. To all those people that say they're coming here and they're going to take our job, they're taking the jobs no one else wants. If you really are out of work and you want a job, you can pick up your entire life, your entire family, and go work at a fast food store in Cold Lake, Alberta, or something like that if you really are that concerned about having a job. I know you want a job in your field, which there's a 99% chance the Syrian refugees aren't going to take anyways.
So sir, I'll let you respond to Adam's comments about employment.
Okay, I think you have to go back and look at the historical evidence. I think when we talk about the short term, what happened next month or next 6 months, that is something that I would not concentrate on. What happens in the longer term, we have to look at it. When we look at the statistic, refugees, they are very motivated. Refugees make good citizens. I mean, that is all the studies show. They are here to establish a life. In my own case, and many people that I know and I work with, there is no way to go back. This is it. This is my country. I mean,
it's got to work, right?
I have to work. Yeah. I came to Canada with 2 degrees, one in maritime science from England, one from back in Iran, and I delivered pizza for some times to supplement my very low-paid job that I got in the morning. And I had no problem doing that. I did that for 2 years. Cool. So usually refugees do well because they are committed, they save money, they buy a house, obviously they do well. And I don't think when you look at, again, you have to go back, look at the Ukrainian refugees, where they are today, Vietnamese refugees that we had. At the time, I'm sure there were a lot of questions, the similar question people were having.
History does tend to repeat itself.
But look at the Vietnamese, how the second generation are doing, how fantastic they have evolved to being the fantastic citizen and being professionals. Look at even the former Yugoslavian that we had just about 15 years ago that they moved to Canada as a refugee. They are doing amazingly well, and Kosovo. So I think I'm very positive about it because I live with that. I know the numbers, I've seen the research, and I think if people take time to really understand, look for the evidence, look at how refugees settle. And I can tell you, I mean, look at our mayor. He's a child of a refugee. He came as a child refugee. So I mean, look at Adrian Clarkson.
Good example.
We have many, many examples. So again, if you look at the evidence, is a positive thing. However, I think there's a lot that we have to do to make sure it happens right.
Yes.
I mean, you can't take it for granted. You can't bring people and just let it on their own. You have to provide them support. You have to create a condition that they become successful, their children. And they've done an amazing job. Look at our school system. They've done an amazing job in really integrating children from, I mean, we worked with them. We had refugees coming from Burma. They were a group of people that they never lived outside the camp. And when we look at the progress the children have made and how fantastic they have done, it's just a miracle. It's just amazing. So I'm very positive about that. I don't think people should worry about those things.
The policy of our federal government is to essentially welcome families, women, not a whole lot of unaccompanied adult males. Is that a fair play?
I think when you look at, again, numbers, I think it may not be exact, accurate statement. However, I think for the perception at this point, because of some of the conversation was going on regarding the Syrian refugee and what happened, obviously we can't ignore them. I mean, what's going on in the United States now, how the politicians approaching us is impacting us. That's very much, we watch their TV all the time, so we cannot say that it's not impacting us. I don't think the government has actually a specific plan not to bring the singles man here, but we have to remember, when you go there and there are 4 million people and you're looking for the highest in need, so then maybe single man would not be your first choice.
I mean, I think it's fair, right?
That's how I look at it. But again, the members of the LGBT community, obviously, this is a group that have been persecuted in that area, still in the camp, they're not safe. And I think it has been our priority, it has been the government priority that bring people that they are.
And that's a good point. That is a good point. The government has prioritized gay males, accompanied or not.
Exactly.
Canada,
So obviously, because again, it goes back to the overall definition of the highest need of protection. And obviously, the gay man is a highest need of protection in that area, so that should not be a problem.
Real quick, we're almost out of time. If the average Calgarian wants to help the plight of these Syrian refugees, what can they do?
I think the number of things we can do, again, not only Syrian refugees, all the people
refugees
that we have in general, and
sure.
also all the vulnerable people in our community. I think I always say that we've been a very smart city. Now is the time for us to become a wise city, knowing that we have to really look at the people that are unprivileged. They are, they're going through a tough time in their life, either born in Canada or being in refugees. In respect to refugees and the context that we are talking about today, there are many ways people can do it. We have a website, Calgary Catholic Immigration Society website. We're also trying to put in another website just for Syrian refugee. At this point, obviously the cash will help. I just was telling you about this
housing,
man actually the family that they brought their distant relative here, and the gentleman passed away.
Right.
So you know how expensive it is. I don't know whether you know that, but it's expensive to die in this country, in this city. So obviously we are covering some of that cost. So some people that they sponsored a year ago, people, they actually have lost their jobs, so they may need a little bit of support. So that is what we have decided. All the donations that come to Calgary Catholic Immigration Society, 100% will go actually into the hand of refugees. We're not taking any administration or any other
That's admirable. That's the way it should be. That's refreshing, frankly.
And also, again, as we as individuals, as a neighbors, as a co-worker, as a classmate, we have to be really aware of these people have gone through a lot of tough time. I mean, imagine for years, 3 years, they never slept one night feeling that there's another day that they can wake up.
Just be decent, folks. How about that? You know, let's all just be decent
and be kind to them. And I
Yeah.
think understand them. Once we understand, that fear really comes from lack of knowledge.
I think you're right.
I mean, and what you're doing, I mean, I appreciate what you're doing, even bringing that question up. And again, we also have to respect people that they have
Opinions, yeah, sure, but I mean, educate, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The conversation is very, very helpful.
Sir, thank you very much for taking the time, joining us tonight. Greatly appreciate it, and you should be proud of the work you do. I'll tell you, cast and crew here, we definitely are. I think it's a good thing. Thanks
Thank you
again.
very much. No, thank you for the opportunity.
Folks, that's all the time we've got for tonight. As always, you can get at us on Facebook. We're also on Twitter. Don't be a stranger. Until next time, take care.